I'm here with the Incremental Development Alliance. I will call it IncDev very many times. You'll hear me just say IncDev. Well, that's our nonprofit. I'm also the founder and CEO of a company called, or several companies under the umbrella of what is known as Buffalo Development. So I am from Buffalo, New York. Buffalo is actually sort of a sister city to Peoria in many ways. I just learned this in all of my travels here in the last couple of days, that we have a really great connection between these two cities with the Larkin administration, the Larkin Company, which this was its second sort of distribution area, and Buffalo was the first. So we're weirdly connected in our industrial past, which made me really happy. So anyway, I run a company called Buffalo Development. Buffalo is, and I'll go into it a little bit to give you some context, but there are three companies: construction company, dedicated to doing good construction work in buildings; property management company, dedicated to managing and leasing and selling and brokering deals in the real estate world; and also development. So I find a building, it's vacant typically, and I renovate it and make it come back to life again. It's really fun. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, but my primary reason for being here is to get you guys to really think about taking the leap into buying another property, buying a property, or helping someone buy a property and become a small scale developer, what's called an incremental developer. So can I just ask a couple quick questions? How many people own a home? Awesome, great. A lot of homeowners and married people here in Peoria. I thought it was really great. So how many people own a second home or maybe a rental property? Awesome. Anybody own 5 properties or more? Hands up. Cool. All right, you guys could probably be up here teaching this if you'd like. I'm more than willing to hand over the mic. All right, and how many people are business owners that don't own properties or are thinking about buying a property? Cool. Where's Pete? Where's Pete with his donut shop? Where'd he go? There he is. So I'm trying to convince this guy Pete here, who's on the I team, to start a donut shop. So I'm just laying the groundwork for you. So anyway, all right. So I'm here, and then I have to tell you one more thing. So I wear one more hat, which is I'm on the City of Buffalo Zoning Board of Appeals. So on any given day, I'm wearing a zoning hat, which is city. I'm wearing a development hat, which is the developer, and then I'm wearing this community activism hat. This idea that our development, the small-scale development, is a really great tool to help encourage and commit good resources, time, love, attention to our communities that need it, right? So there's this community activism hat that I wear, and that a lot of small-scale developers wear, and that's why I'm here today. So our goal with IncDev is we are a nonprofit. By the way, I am not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to tell you that you're going to get rich. I'm not here to tell you, you see these get rich quick, flip your house, blah, 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 blah. This is not that conversation. This conversation is buy that really cool little mixed-use building on the corner and put Pete's Donut Shop on the first floor and make it happen, because that is what your community needs. And by the way, I talk a lot about donuts and pizza, probably because they're my 2 favorite things. But it could be a wedding calligraphy shop or a boutique floral shop or whatever. So anyway, our goal is to cultivate 1,000 small-scale developers and help get cities on board with helping those small-scale developers. So we as a nonprofit, we are trying to always get people to buy properties, but we're also trying to get cities and the city departments on board with the idea of, hey, help these people get through this process. Please don't just be no, help guide them, get them through this, because if they can get that coffee roastery up and running, right? Caesar, yeah, there he is. You can get a coffee roastery up and running, you might spur 5 coffee roasteries and 5 little coffee shops, which will then help rebuild the neighborhoods that you have in Peoria. So that is our goal. And we are, by the way, as a nonprofit, we're teaming up with the innovation team, and we are here to stay. We're here to help. And our resources are your resources. And that's important too. So our goal is to help train small business owners, train people to becoming small scale developers. Those people could be architects, construction people, small businesses. If you own a side business, how do we get you from doing it inside your home to starting and opening up your own store, right? That's a small scale developer, and they don't even know it. And I'll show you my story, and I didn't even know that I was doing it. And now here I am giving the rah-rah, like everybody should do it. We also work with civic groups. Like I said, we work with the cities. And then our goal is to also connect. And I say this a lot. So I'm from Buffalo. I have a friend, Amy, from Detroit, right? Well, why are we friends? We were connected via people that are in the development world that said, hey, Bernice, you should really know Amy. You guys are like weird twins, but you're from different families and you like the same things. And now Amy and we bounce ideas off each other all the time. And you might be 4 hours away by car, but you can pick up the phone or send a text anytime and then really help work through problems together. So that's really what IncDev does. It's helping boost you, get you on board, helping the cities work through those city processes to make you successful, and also, again, connect. So what is small scale development? And I love this slide. This is really small scale development, from the pop-up community market where somebody sells the best cinnamon rolls on the planet, to them finally buying a mixed-use building, to maybe even a multifamily building 3 stories or under. This is the realm that big developers can't play in, and this serves to be a big opportunity, especially for places like Peoria, right, where you have a lot of really cute little salt boxes, and you have these really great little brick buildings and old corner taverns that have been forgotten about or maybe neglected, still maintained, that could be a big opportunity. So this is really our realm, the incremental small realm. And the idea is, so if I can convince you to buy, again, I'm not a sales agent. I feel so funny being up here being like, oh, buy. But if I can convince you to buy, this is how you think about it. What neighborhood do I like? What block do I like? Oh, is there a lot on that block that I love that I can develop on? Or a building within that neighborhood that I can get behind, right? Where are we gonna put Pete's Donut Shop, or his wife's yoga studio, or the roastery, right? There are areas where, this neighborhood that you like, that you wanna make an impact in, that is what we're all about, is trying to get this in your neighborhoods. So why? What do we hope to see? And this is a slide that is near and dear to my personal heart. I grew up in downtown Niagara Falls, family 4, extreme poverty. I promise you, when I show you the projects that I've done, it does not come from family money. It comes from hard work and bootstrapping and all of this. It really comes from being naive in like 25 when I did it. But that's okay. Let's channel our inner 25-year-olds if that's what's gonna turn around neighborhoods, right? So, but the idea is building wealth. And we talk about this all the time, but if you have an extra $1,000 in your pocket because you buy a 3-unit property and you're living on the 3rd floor and you're renting out 2 apartments and you're paying your mortgage with the rent, you have more money in your pocket to pay your student loans down or to start your own business, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about building wealth. And in the time that we're in, no one's really gonna come save you. There aren't incentives out there to help do this stuff. I'm not even going to get into a Debbie Downer, but you have, 88 million millennials and 70 million Gen Zers that are coming up with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of debt. Do you think that they're going to have a bunch of kids and buy properties the way the older generations did? No, they're not. So the idea is building wealth. This is the way. This is why Uber is in. This is ride sharing. This is why Airbnb is in. All of this creative ways to make money. And to me, small scale development is that creative way. So I'm going to talk basically a show in 3 acts, right? What the challenges of small scale development, the challenges of development in general. We're going to talk about the power of incremental, and then talk about IncDev, and I'll give you a couple of my personal experiences. And if I can do it, you guys can do it. So these are the problems that I'm going to talk a little bit about challenges. So what are the things that we want to see in our communities? We want to see the coffee shops, right? We want to see the roasteries. We want to see the design firm opening up their first brick and mortar. We want to see taco factories going from food truck to maybe a brick and mortar. We want to see businesses grow and find and create jobs and keep that wealth in the communities, right? But why don't we see it? Well, here's a lot of issues. And by the way, this is not foreign to Peoria, but I have confirmed that this is what Peoria is seeing as well. You get one person who owns 250 houses in a neighborhood, and he doesn't do, or she doesn't do very well with them, and she doesn't maintain them. Or you get big developers developing on the fringes, but everyone's ignoring the cute little coffee shops. And then you get what happens is, as people don't maintain properties, prices go down for houses, rents go down for houses, the tax base starts to deteriorate, and then it's just a cycle. And we were talking today with the building or with the economic development folks, and somebody said, well, pointing out Detroit. You know what? Yeah, and buildings in Detroit are worth $1. Well, Detroit's figuring it out. In Buffalo, buildings were worth $1. Buffalo's figuring it out. How are they figuring it out? Because they realize that small-scale development is the way to make it happen. Because the tax base is going to continue to erode if we don't do something about it in small towns and cities like this. So, no one's going to save it. I don't mean to sound negative, but the only way you're going to do it is if you do it yourself. I also call that GSD, which stands for getting shit done. So, yeah. So I don't mean to be too crude. I run a construction company, so and I'm from Niagara Falls, and if you ask anybody, like a girl from Niagara Falls, yeah, she's inherently sassier than most women. So, so if I get a little out of control, I apologize. And then the last thing that we deal with in development is financing. And like I said, Detroit has gotten through it, and Buffalo has gotten through it, and cities with the same situations as Peoria, they've gotten through it. But how? Creatively or incrementally, right? And there are ways to do it. I'm going to talk about it. So I love talking about donuts. This is like my new thing. Maybe I should open my own donut shop. Okay, so what does it take to do a Dunkin' Donuts? It takes $500,000 or some level of major upfront capital, costs $1 million to build, and then immediately it starts churning out all this money, and then all the money goes away. It goes to corporate headquarters. You hire, you're a job creator, but you have a bunch of minimum wage jobs, right? Is that good for the neighborhood? Is that really good for the community? Does anybody really like having a driveway in their backyard and they hear, hey, good morning, what kind of coffee would you like today? Do people really like loudspeakers blaring in their backyard? No, they don't. We live in a city. People live close to each other. They don't. But what do they like? They like when Pete opens up his donut shop right here, and then when the local high school is raising money, they go, hey, Pete, can we have some donuts? We want to sell donuts, right, to raise money for us to go to France or something. And Pete goes, sure, yeah, here you go. Here's a bunch of donuts. Pete's now giving back to the community, right? He's building wealth. He's hiring people. And I'm going to pick on you all day. Sorry. And he's hiring people, and he's getting people, helping the community that he serves. So the money stays here. And yeah, I don't even want to get started on the Tim Hortons chain, which is what we deal with a lot in Buffalo. But I always think I'm in the wrong business. Maybe I should only open fast food chains because there's a lot of money to be made there. But all the money goes away, and it's not good for our community. And that's really what matters the most. So let's talk about this is the last slide on donuts. I'll stop. So so IncDev again is all of these developers from all around the country who started this nonprofit. We're sort of like, we attack a city. We're like, how can we help this city? How can we get them to buy, et cetera, et cetera. And we're all doing our things in Portland and Albuquerque, Buffalo, Detroit, et cetera. Well, Monty in Texas, where they have no rules, he decided, yeah, I know, it's like Wild Wild West over there. He does this donut thing really well, where he goes to someone in the community and says, hey, would you want to open a donut shop? Or what do you like to do? Oh, you like donuts? Okay, great. I'm going to make you a donut shop. I'm going to put an apartment behind it. And you're going to live near where you work, and you're going to pay me, X number of dollars over 10 years. And then we'll talk about what, maybe you can buy the building after, or et cetera, et cetera. Well, this guy, this donut shop, he's on this a couple of times at least. It's a big deal. You're living where you work. You are, you're living cheap. You're right there in the community. You're building your business. He'll work with anybody. And there are a lot of developers out there that will do this. Although you got to get to a certain point, you got to start, take some of your own risks, and then help other people take risks, right? So that's what we're trying to build. But Monty started, and then now he's like, all right, he's on this let's help everybody in the community kind of thing. And that's exactly what small scale development's all about. So that's the end of the donuts slides for now. You're off the hook, Pete. Now we'll go into yoga studios. Is this your wife here? Or yes, I heard you want to open a yoga studio. I'm talking to you the entire time, right? No, I'm just teasing. So what's the current state of the development industry, right? And there's all of these people, there's people who are against development, they're against multifamily housing, they're against density, they're against, and that we call those NIMBYs. We all know who they are. In fact, we're all one at some point, I'm sure. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of arcane, weird, crazy regulations that come from the city and from the state, and there are reasons for every regulation, I'm not denying it. But how do you get around those? How do you work with the right people? How do you get through the regulations? That stops a lot of small-scale developers. We were talking about that earlier. You get a lot of people that just want to build family dollars. So guess what happens? They only build family dollars, but they have all the expertise, but they don't want to help. And no offense I don't want to pick on anybody, sorry. But they have the expertise in their brain, but they're not down in the community. Well, why not? Why don't we get them down in the community, get them away from their specialty and into helping get a yoga studio in place, right? Or I won't even say donuts, let's say pizza shops, right? So, and then this is my favorite, but not favorite, but the construction labor shortage. This is a huge issue. Thank goodness for the internet telling all Generation Z that they should not go to college and they should become construction people, right? Because there's money to be made in construction and we're missing our tradespeople. And there's a huge labor force shortage in many, many cities because like me, millennial here, went to college and now, yes, I'm using my degree, but a lot of my friends are not. And they could have, and then what's so crazy about it, they become carpenters and makers anyway. So the idea of this labor shortage really inhibits small scale development, also big scale, but especially small scale. And then these are some weird statistics that are true that make me sad, but we need to face. 62% of all the houses in the United States are single family homes. Well, guess what? By 2030, 83% of homes won't have kids. So what happens then? You have single family homes, no families with no kids. Well, there's a lot of mismatched buildings. You don't have a lot of, people in other bigger cities are thinking about this, like one bedroom house, apartments, et cetera, small housing. So so what ends up happening is because we're not really identifying trends or we're trying to fight fires, right, as a community, right? That's what we are doing. We're fighting fires all day long. People don't think long term about what the trends are, what's happening with trends. And 75% of the housing that needs to be developed right now really needs to be multifamily housing. So let's role play here for a second. Hi, I'm Bernice. I'm a developer, and I want to build multifamily housing in your neighborhood. What happens? This happens. Right? And it's like, whoa, no, we don't want to do that. Okay. Well, there has to be a solution here. We have to get on the same page. This is where small scale development can really come into play. And this is a funny slide because what happens is, this happens in Buffalo, maybe not Peoria, but when you push out the fact that you want multifamily housing and then everybody yells and the pitchforks come out, then you get like weird stuff like this that happens that is like kind of colorful with bushes, but really ends up becoming a garbage pit. I have better photos of like literal garbage next, outside of some of these kind of watered down, mediocre projects that, that are nice but don't last and aren't really the right things to do. But what do people really like? Like, let's be honest here. They like simple rectangular buildings. They're just lovable, right? And it's so weird because it's something we're so used to, but nobody builds them anymore. But small scale developers can and will. So we have choices. but it's not easy, right? Our choices right now, and I say we, as like I live in Peoria, which they've already asked me several times to buy, and I'm like, oh, maybe. Because Peoria has a lot of really cool things going on for itself. We have a choice to meet a demand and to really think about our communities and think about what the communities need. And it isn't going to be big developers that think that way. It's going to be small scale and development. And I'll show you some of the stuff that I did in my community, and you'll be able to put it in a context like, oh, I can do that. So, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So let's talk about the power of incremental. So everybody knows, all right, I usually wear construction boots all the time. This is like the most dressed up I get. But this is a funny slide for me personally, but it's a funny slide to put in. But it's important. So how many ways can you wear a black dress? A ton, right? Come on. It's like classic. You can wear it up, down, flats, heels, boots, like you can do it. Well, it's because it's simple and it's classic and it's elegant. And this is a black dress kind of building, right? Something that is timeless, that lasts forever, that really is simple and beautiful in its own realm. And our cities, Peoria is filled with timeless, classic little black dresses. But we're not taking advantage. We're not, or whatever the case may be. There's barriers to getting those back online. That's what we're here for. So this is a really fun slide. You see, this is really important. So you see what kind of building types are small scale. Well, you see the mid-rise and up. That's what all the large scale developers are doing over here on my right, or on your right. And then on the left, you see the single family. But everything in the middle is stuff that we can play in, that we can build wealth, that we can rebuild our communities through. So everything in the middle is like the courtyards and the mixed-use 3-story building with the yoga studio and maybe even vacant lots that you put community gardens in that maybe don't have a use right now but have a use down the road. Townhomes and fourplexes and all of this zone, this area that you can really play in and have fun with and make more sustainable, more stronger is the right word, more like stronger communities at large. And that's the stuff that exists in Peoria already. It just needs to be loved again. So there's not enough developers. This is why I'm here. This is why our nonprofit exists. There's not enough of us to go around. We have a Facebook group. It's called Small Developers/Builders. There's like 4,000 people on that Facebook group. Of 4,000, maybe 1,000, maybe less, are actually engaged in like doing these projects, and the rest of them are like almost ready to go. But think about every community across the country that faces issues, well, you need like 20 to 50 or more people per community that does this, not one, right? So there's not enough. And so there's a couple ways to start. I had to put this slide in here. So how do you start? Well, you can buy an existing building. So just to put a little bit of context, I am a graduate of the IncDev course, of the IncDev workshops. I was already doing real estate development, but I flew to Memphis. I paid to go to Memphis. I paid for a hotel just to see if I was missing something. And and I went there, and then I started yelling. I said, wait a second, you guys are talking about new builds, but no one's talking about existing buildings. And that is the way to make some money and to really think about like how to make how to really change your communities is buying existing buildings. And there's so much of it in maybe not Arizona, but there's plenty of it in Buffalo, plenty. Buffalo, Cleveland, here, all these old communities have tons of existing buildings. So this is the day I bought my first set of buildings. Do you see the excitement on my face? I'm not kidding. I literally had to go take a nap. I was like, wow, I just did all that. I'm exhausted. I feel like I just jumped out of a plane, like on it with a rope thing. It's just bungee jumping. That's what I felt like I had just done. Like it was just insane. And so these, and I'll talk about the projects, but these are my little babies, and these are what they look like today. And yes, this flag here, just to point it out, that's the City of Buffalo flag. It has thunderbolts. It's really cool. Because somebody asked last night, what's that flag? City of Buffalo flag. We're pretty cool. So anyway, so you can start by buying. You can also start by, and this is where Pete and his wife come in, they're thinking about doing a yoga thing and maybe a donut shop and maybe even a donut/yoga shop, right? And they can buy this building. There's plenty of buildings that are like this. You put your storefront on the first floor, you have a couple apartments on the second floor, you rent out, you live on the third floor, right? So now your rent became a mortgage and you're rolling, and I could talk about finances for hours, but you can walk into a bank and say, I have a business plan and a business, and I'm going to use my mortgage, and I want you to finance this project. And now you're leveraging your business and your mortgage and or the money you're about to pay for some rent somewhere. You're leveraging that, but to buy a building and have equity in a building. And 10 years down the road, when all that's paid off, and now you're sitting on this nice little building with equity and an asset, now you're talking. And now you can put your kids through college or whatever, expand your yoga studio, whatever you want to do. We're not here to do a zillion projects. The idea is that 1 or 2 or 3 is exciting. And then you can also build, and I know this is questionable in Peoria because of price values, but there are ways to make new builds work with, if you do a 4-plex and you live in one, again, you leverage the fact that you could live in one and maybe rent the other 3 out, starts to make a lot of sense. And so the building workshop that follows this lecture, there's an all-day building workshop in April. That building workshop will actually go into the finances. I'm going to talk about it, but we'll go into the finances of thinking about these scenarios and helping you get through them. And if you can't buy, you got to be a champion. Here's the rule. If you guys walk away and you don't want to buy anything, you don't want to do development, you need to be a champion for Peoria. My biggest takeaway from Peoria was, it doesn't seem as bad as everybody tells me it is. Right? And maybe they just need a little confidence. It's clean, you've got a lot of great building stock, you have really friendly people, you've got good local businesses. Well, how do you become a champion for Peoria? You have to be. You have to put the flag out. You have to say, yes, this place is great, and work through that. So I want to talk a little bit about zoning. This may be boring. I will be quick. Oh, you're shaking your head. In a good way or a bad way? Oh, good way. Okay. Well, I like zoning too. So Columbus, yes. But everybody else probably doesn't. So we can talk on the side. So Columbus, Georgia, right? So they actually they said, well, we want this. Right here on the top, they said we want to see mixed-use walkable neighborhoods. But what their zoning code said is, no, our zoning code says you have to build weird suburban-style housing in the town. Well, that doesn't align. The thing about zoning is, and I say this all the time, the zoning code is the DNA of the city. That's the way you have to look at it. If your zoning code sucks, your buildings and your development will suck. I'm not kidding. And it sounds so silly, but it's so true. If your zoning is great, and then you'll get pretty great development, because there's other things you need to fix there too, like maybe design. I won't get into all that. But at least if you start out with good zoning, you're on a good track. And Buffalo just redid their zoning code, took 6 years. It was a long story, long process. But now we have an excellent code. And Peoria actually has a fairly progressive zoning code. There's some issues there that we've determined after talking to a lot of people, but Peoria has a leg up than most other cities. You want to see a bad code, go to we hacked Kalamazoo's and Toledo's and all these other codes. You can't even build anything according to their codes there. And then what happens? You buy a building and then you find out that you can't do anything with it, and then it sits vacant. That's not good. And so here's a couple of things. So current zoning, right? This is suburban. See the green grass in the front and lots of parking? Well, you can adopt zoning codes and zoning laws that make it look the way you want it to look, the DNA of the city. This is what they're working on now. This is what Buffalo has done. This is what many cities are starting to do. And this is a comical slide. In Buffalo, this was the peril of Buffalo. We lost half our population, 500,000 to 250,000. Well, what comes with that? Houses that are being torn down, which, by the way, don't tear them down. Just saying. Don't tear them down, all right? If you don't have to, please. But that's another conversation. Those are all opportunities. But Buffalo tore 88,000 properties down, okay? Well, then we had all these vacant lots. our zoning code would not allow for vacant lots to be built on, because the zoning code said if you want to build a single family house, it needs to be 50 feet, you need a 50-foot wide lot. Well, in the city, we all know we have these cute little narrow lots. Immediately became illegal, immediately couldn't build on it. As soon as we made the change, new buildings are popping up like this. Skinny little cute new builds are coming up. And the city, what's happening is neighborhoods are starting to say, oh, there's value to that. We can build a house for $175,000. So people can pay that, right? By the way, Buffalo's costs were very similar to Peoria's until recently, and I'll talk about that. Because everybody in their mind right now is saying, well, the costs don't make sense. You know, if you buy a $20,000 house, you're not going to get any money out of it. I'm going to show you. And this is another change, right? So 15, 16 units are allowed on one lot. Well, maybe up the density a little bit, so you get a couple more apartments. That's how you start getting density, people walking, people going to the yoga place, the donut shop, the design studio, the laundromat, anything. Every business needs people to succeed, and businesses are really the backbone of our jobs and of our communities, and that's why this incremental stuff makes a lot of sense. So, last zoning thing, but the idea of Peoria is lucky that it has good zoning overlays already, but there are opportunities within that code. And so we're going to try to work with the I-team to help identify some zoning issues. And this is where we can really have fun with the zoning code and try to create the vision that Peoria wants to see for itself. It doesn't mean that you can't do projects now, but it means that there's always room for improvement. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity here. We will. And they're working on this. So rest assured, there are people looking at this, and that's important to know. So our approach, and these are my favorite slides because they're probably the cutest. So commit to a place that you love that needs you. Everybody knows there's neighborhoods in Peoria that need love, that you maybe grew up in, or for example, I bought a property that's right next door to the property I grew up in. The property I grew up in is vacant and needs to be bought, but the owner's a pain in the butt. So I said, all right, I'm going to stick my nose in this conversation. I'll buy the property next to it. And now I'm committed to that block, right? So that's where, you find your places. And then you take the step. You go from the yoga studio or the yoga classes to the yoga studio. And then you do one project at a time. It's nothing. So most small scale developers, believe it or not, it's a side hustle. It's like a side gig. It's something you do on your evenings and weekends. And I always joke around, like right around 5 to 10 units is when you start needing to not do it full time. So, you start needing to do it full time. I don't have kids, so I felt like I got through that a lot easier. Like I was like getting in 20 units, and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. But after 20 units, I needed a team, right? So the thing is, it's one project at a time. It's small, simple. It's working with the city to identify to do cool crosswalks, and then painting a house, and then working on the community garden and putting the flowers in, putting in bulbs so they come up every spring, and so you don't have to worry about them. And it sounds silly, but all these little things add up to where now you've got a neighborhood that is stronger and more resilient than it was before. So small scale development, we're all about learning the rules. But then kind of breaking the rules, but bending the rules is probably better. Learn the rules, know how to use them. In this situation, if you have a 3-story building and you're trying to get away with having an elevator, if you put a handicapped accessible unit on the first floor, you get around building code for an elevator, and that just took $250,000 out of your pro forma needs, out of your budget, and now your rents go down and your project can be feasible. See? Stuff like that. And also, like, little stuff is important too. Little cottages are great. And so I love this slide here. This is kind of our weird little approach, but rectangles, like square, simple, rectangular houses are really loved. And they can be flexible over time, and that's small scale. That's incremental. And this is why we're doing it. So you're supporting the donut shop, you're supporting the yoga studio, you're supporting the print shop. You're supporting the construction company that needs a storefront. You're supporting, that's the idea of incremental. The power of incremental is that we're working together to create jobs and be more sustainable, because no one is really going to fix this stuff. We have to fix it. And we talked about zoning. I'm not going to get into it, except for maybe you and I after this, we're going to talk about zoning. But zoning the proper changes can really make a lot of good things happen. And this is my absolute 100% favorite slide in the whole thing is in this presentation, which is that little buildings and incremental development gives back so much more than, it just gives back like 1,000 times, because you have like security with the bike racks, you've got bicycles, you've got the little bowl of water for the dogs, you've got the nice building, you've got the local business owner. I can't stress that enough. That's the identity, that's what determines the identity and the sustainability of a community, is buildings, they give more than they take. So you cultivate your neighborhood. So the idea is, how are we gonna get it done? We're gonna work together. This is exactly what you just asked. We're going to work together, we're going to make small steps. We're going to work with the city building department, we're going to work with the zoning code and figure out the issues there. We're going to figure out what is best for the community. That is what the I team is there for. The innovation team, I don't know if you've been in their office, but they have the craziest things all over their walls. They write all over their walls, all about the communities and what the communities need. They're really great advocates and partners in this endeavor. And it put me to shame. And I'm like a big writer on a wall. I have a huge chalk wall at my office. So it's pretty cool. So this is the home stretch. This is where you come in. This is what we need. We need potential small scale developers. We need potential community partners, like businesses, bankers, people with a little bit of cash. It's about connecting those people. I'm not taking your money, okay? Just to be clear. This is like, you want to do a donut shop? Hey, your friend has a rich aunt that's willing to invest in Peoria because she has 3 generations of people she's willing to invest in your donut shop. Great, let's make those connections, right? Let's find those partners, and let's find the champions, the people who maybe don't want to take the risk. They know it's not for them, but they will take the I team. Those are champions. And there are people I met last night that are photographers and artists and zoning people. Those are your champions. They're working every day. We need more of those. If they can be a champion and invest, but if you don't really want to invest, fine, be a champion. So these are the developers, and I talk a lot about it. The real estate folks. Who do we want? We want real estate people, architects, business owners, etc. I will explain. I was a small developer. I didn't even realize it. We need the investors, the community banks. I was asked earlier, well, no one will finance this. Well, of course Bank of America won't finance that project for you. But you know what? The Southside something bank may, I don't know, I didn't get the name, but your community banks might. And you might have a nonprofit that might team up with you to finance projects. And then the champions, people, nonprofit organizations, the mayor's staff, etc. People in the community, maybe even the NIMBYs who are against it, believe it or not, they have all that energy. Let's channel it. Let's work with them. I know. And it's hard, right? But, why are they screaming? They're screaming for a reason. Some I know can be just curmudgeon-y, but there are a lot of people with a lot of energy for a reason. They love where they are. That's why they're there. So how do you work with those people and help channel that energy properly? And I'll tell you, who's going to be against people painting and cleaning their shutters and planting flowers? Who's really against that? If they're really against it, there's another set of problems. There's another set of problems. But most people are gonna be like, oh, she's painting the house. I don't like the color, but I'm glad she's painting it, right? And then the next week you see them cleaning the shutters and painting or planting the flowers. It's a domino effect. So this is a workshop that we have in April. There are several scholarships available. They're working through that right now. But it is, like I said, I flew to Memphis from Buffalo, and it was well worth it. And I'll explain. I learned so much weird stuff that I wasn't doing, or that I should have been doing, let's say that, when I went to that, and then became a convert, and then became the screaming voice at the end of the phone later, and then now here I am. So the one-day workshop, this is what it includes. It's really developers, so Aaron and Allie are gonna be here for that. Aaron is a historic preservation guy. Allie is I'll explain. She's a powerhouse. They are going to be here doing an all-day workshop talking about financing and building types and zoning and et cetera. You're here for a full day. Some people walk away and they're like, this isn't for me. Some people walk away and say, holy shit, I'm about to buy something. So that's the goal. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Or they go, man, I was really doing all that all wrong, but okay, that was me. So we learn about why scale matters. We learn about finances, how finances actually work. Learn about how putting buildings on a lot and how the finance flows. All that stuff is important to development. How to code hack. This is just the one day. And then, by the way, if you like the one day and you're like, I'm going to do a project, we're not gone. We're here. We're here on Facebook. We're here potentially to do more stronger workshops, whatever you need, depending on the demand, we're here. We only commit to a couple cities a year for a reason. Like, this is just, it's a nonprofit. We here to be here. So if there's things that you like and that you learn and you want to do and you still feel like you need help, we're here. We teach people how to do a pro forma. This is my least favorite part of development. And it's the stuff that matters the most. We talk about zoning. Oh, and guess what? We teach people how to ask for money. And we talk about like small building investment packages and why this matters and how to talk to a developer or an investor. You know, holy moly, are those really crazy conversations. Trying to meet with a millionaire and you're like, hey, can I borrow like $20,000? You know, and they're like, they only want to see these numbers. So you have to learn how to speak their language and then also insert all the cool community things with it, right? Yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to do this building for $20,000 or $200,000 or $2 million, whatever. But you really don't know that I'm going to be like planting cool tulips on the side and like painting it, putting a cool mural on the building. That's all wrapped into those numbers, you know. And then and they don't really care. They just want to, but you learn how to talk to banks and talk to investors. And that's something that's very hard. I struggle with it all the time. And I have investors and bank partners. And, and I actually learned that bankers are super vanilla. But if you get the cool bankers that like understand Game of Thrones references, then you're like, then you're best buddies. So you just have to learn how to speak to the bankers and get good relationships. So we teach that. And then if there's a big group, this is the Columbus cohort. There were a bunch of people, like for example, we were just in Atlanta. Well, what came out of Atlanta was like a tornado, okay? All these women that were doing development and men, they were doing all these like one houses, et cetera, et cetera. They came to the to the workshop, and then they started doing. Then we saw such a demand that we did a boot camp. Like, bring your project to us. We'll be back in town. Bring the project, and we're gonna go even further and help you solidify this project. So what happens is we do advanced boot camps as well. The advanced boot camp is not committed, but if there is enough interest, we can talk about it. If not, we can get people who are committed to, needing extra help. We'll find them a way to get to where they are, because we're always doing the advanced boot camps in some other cities like Atlanta, Albuquerque, etc. So we do like a lot of that. It's really fun, and you really dive into the details. And by the time of the advanced boot camp, you're like, I'm good. Let's do this. So here's where I get to talk about myself. Sorry, I'll be quick. So this is the alumni. This is some of the alumni and some of the projects that we've done. So remember, IncDev is a nonprofit from a bunch of developers who are really, really busy, right? But we feel committed to kind of putting the call out to other communities. You got to start doing this stuff. This is how you're going to turn your communities around. No one is really going to save you, and the big developers aren't going to do this, and we're going to be in trouble if this doesn't happen. So we've been cultivating successes and people and support networks and investors and bankers, et cetera. And this is these are just some of the faces of many of the IncDev people, right? And so these are some of my projects. I want to talk about these for a second. So Buffalo, New York, it does snow there a lot. I drive a Subaru. It's fine, okay? In fact, like after we had the thaw, I was like, I'm not even gonna wear my winter coat anymore. I'm done with this. I'm so used to this snow and the cold. Fine, get it. But we also have a lot of really great buildings. So this is one of the buildings I bought in 2016. I took a full year to renovate it. I put a Jackson Hewitt in there, Ask me why. Well, everybody needs to do their taxes, and it happens to be in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, and they don't have phones and the internet and all these things that do taxes. So I put a Jackson Hewitt in there, sign a 5-year lease. Great. That makes this project really bankable because I have an anchor tenant, right? So then I start renovating apartment by apartment by apartment. It was vacant, with the exception of one tenant, technically in the back, who's still there. And I kept their rents low. I didn't raise the rents. And we renovated one by one by one. Then the final straw, the final celebration, was I worked with an art gallery to put a Hispanic heritage mural on the entire building. Why? Because it's a gateway to the Hispanic heritage area. And I was the honorary Puerto Rican at the Puerto Rican Day Parade this year. Yeah, I was like in the parade, we're dancing, you know. It was really funny, you know, but it was so great. They didn't care. Who cares? They're like, oh, some like little white girl from Niagara Falls. She supports, as long as we're here, we're all in this together, right? I live down the street. You know, we're all in this together. So that is what that became, and now that's an iconic building for our community. And I paid $8,000 for the mural, okay? But I had other foundations pony up the rest of the money. We worked together and we made it happen. And now I'm 100% occupied there. It's easy to rent apartments. Why? Oh, hey, do you see the mural outside? Oh yeah, I saw the mural. Okay, great. This is what we're all about. We're all about the community. The rents on average here are $700 a month for beautiful 2 bedrooms. I'm trying to do right by the community, right by the building, right by the neighborhood. And guess what happens? I'm out there cleaning and sweeping the streets and, and putting art up in the hallways and putting little buffaloes on the stairs because we live in Buffalo. And then when people move in, I give them gift cards to the coffee shop and the Hispanic La Flor bakery down the street. And you can have the best baked goods, right? We're all in this together. That's the project. And that led to this. This is the big project I'm working on. This is the biggest project I'm working on. For the record, it's the biggest project I've ever done. So I'm far from an expert in these giant projects, but this is a $3.5 million, 10 units with a brewery on the first floor in Niagara Falls, which is 44,000 people. They've lost half of their population. And I just want to point out, there's 2 buildings here. Building on the right here, this one with a cute little cornice, that building I got from the city for $10,000. They sold it to me. I said, I'm going to put a brewery in just this little building. And then the neighbor contacted me and said, I have this big vacant building next to it. Do you want to buy it? Sure. Great. Well, that $10,000 investment from the city, commitment from the city, they didn't invest, I bought it. That turned into a $3.5 million project with jobs, with apartments, with, you know what I mean? That's the power of incremental development. It's power of small scale. I just submitted for the record, I just submitted the permit, so it's not like operating yet. But it's 2 blocks from 8 million tourists that all go to Niagara Falls. And who doesn't like beer? Serious question. I mean, unless you're like, but I get it. But most people can get behind beer. In fact, there's like this movement called beer-oriented development, where if a brewery comes in, it's like, wha-bam, all of the community starts to come up. So BOD, that's what we're trying to get here, is beer-oriented development. And I teamed up with my friend Sam, who is a big developer, and he's guiding me through that process. Sam, I wouldn't be able to do it without Sam. And because I called a brewery, and I said, hey, Community Beer Works, come to Niagara Falls, they were like, okay. They signed a lease. Immediately, it was a financeable project. Just saying, because I had a long-term lease. And then now that's coming to fruition. Now, this is my funny slide. Okay, so we all have student loan debt, especially millennials. These are all the properties I acquired in Buffalo that were under my student loan debt. So I got like my little cottage, on the right, the little white building, that was $1. The building next to that is $10,000 from the city. My vacant lot with the community garden was $1. My little back rear cottage, in the middle that was $7,000. The house on the left, on the lower left, that was $10,000. Those are 2 units. And then the one on the top left, that was $16,000, which that is the whole side project. I did that for HGTV, renovated that. And then the one on the right I got for $28,000. So all of the, and I know everybody's saying, and I've heard this, oh, well, the money doesn't make sense because in Peoria, the values are low. When I bought them, that was the same situation. But then I started a block club, and then I did a community garden, and then we did a sound garden with exploding, like, plastic cones that we worked with an artist on, and then everybody started liking the neighborhood, and now these properties are worth $200,000, $250,000, which is still low. As some of our better neighborhoods in Buffalo are at like $350,000, $400,000. We're still in a lower income, lower area neighborhood, but they're worth that much money. Am I going to sell them for that much money? No, I'm going to keep the rents low. I'm going to work. I'm going to hold them for a long time and stay committed to the neighborhood. But that value, as it went up, helped me put a roof on the building and then renovate it slowly, clean out the basements, do more to the buildings, and do right by the buildings. So when you talk about Peoria, oh, there's not enough money, blah, 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 I promise you that if enough people start and work together, there will be areas that will rise. It will happen. It does. And you know what? If it doesn't rise that much and you rent it out for 10 years and then you sell it for $50,000, well, hey, your kid, now, you just raised enough money to put your kid through college, unless it keeps going up. But, or maybe they don't go to college and they just become a carpenter. So, but anyway, that's the point. So this is my slide, that things I bought under my student loan. And if I added my husband's student loan debt, I could have added more buildings on here. Because now we're a unit, right? Now his bills are my bills. That's the joys of marriage. I just got married, so yeah. So it's like things that I'm getting used to now. And then, so this is Jay's projects. Again, just simple new builds. He's in Chattanooga. This is Allie. Allie's actually going to be here doing the workshops. Allie is incredible. She is 32. We are BFFs, even though we only know each other through development. She got this project up and running. Let me tell you, NIMBYs were out full force. No. She decided to do something really funny. She had a vacant land. The grass was high. She called her friend who had goats. She basically said, hey, neighbors, come over for a petting zoo. And she brought the goats in. They ate the grass. She put popsicles out for the kids. Everybody pet the goats. And guess what? The project's built. Because the NIMBYs were like, oh, she's really nice. She put a petting zoo for us. And I swear, it's super creative, but it sounds really silly, but she made it happen. She made it work. She had never done a project before. She put the financing together. She went to the bank. She got the NIMBYs to love popsicles and goats. And now they're successful. And now she's on her second round of new infill houses. And this is in a neighborhood that had never seen anything like this. Ryan lives in Texas. Ryan says, no one is going to save me. The government's not gonna help. He's a veteran. He's like, no one's gonna help me. He's like this DIY sweetheart, right? He built these. They're beautiful. And he saw IncDev. He wanted to become a small developer, and he did this. And Ryan is he's on the small developer / builders Facebook page. Add the small developer / builders Facebook page, get on it, and you could be like, hey, is Ryan there? Ryan, can you tell me how you did this? And then Ryan will send you all the information you need to know and how he did that. That's what we're all about. And when all else fails, you just have to bootstrap, MacGyver your way forward. That's what I say all the time. You got to bootstrap it. And so this is the workshop, the all day where we'll be talking about, that's in April. Allie will be here. She will not bring goats with her. But Allie will be here and Aaron will be here, and they'll just kind of guide you through the basics, the 101s, the how to do it, what they did. And that's what we're here. So we're committed to Peoria. We as a nonprofit are committed. We're committed to the I team. Again, not here to sell. There's nothing about get rich. There's nothing about, it's just we're here to help Peoria. So with that, I'll say that small scale development rules. Let's get some donut shops, yoga studios, and go Peoria. So, thank you.